Hi everyone, here is Ricardo Vargas and welcome to the 5 Minutes Podcast. In this episode, I want to go back on what I'm talking for the past 2 or 3 weeks. It's about vibe coding. And of course, I'm not a software developer, but I see an absolutely dramatic potential that vibe coding will do, disrupting some of our thinking about what project management for software development is about. First, what is vibe coding? Very simple. It's you use generative AI to not to help you to do the code, but basically to do the code for you. It means you just talk in natural language, you can talk, you can write, and it will interpret this into a software language and will develop and do pretty much everything for you. And I know many of you will say, but Ricardo, since the time ChatGPT was released, ChatGPT did that. Gemini does that. Claude does that. It's not this what I'm talking here. I'm talking about another level. What we saw in these 2 years, it's, I would say, a massive advancement on this. That is putting a big question mark on what project management for software and software industry is about. Let me explain this. What I tell everyone about project management, that if you spend 1 minute here on planning, means if you do a proper planning and established planning, you will save maybe 100 minutes here on the execution, because you will do less mistakes, things will be faster, because instead of you building, destroying and rebuilding, you already plan and you do less mistakes during execution. This is the essence of what project management is about. So what was our assumption? That the cost on the execution to fix things is very high, it's very painful, and it's very complex. And this is the difference now. So what is happening with vibe coding? It's people said, why do I need to produce all the artifacts to do a software development? Why I just build the idea of what I need and I go and start talking to AI. It start, just making the prompts, fixing, and let's AI to figure out the problem for me. This is what is happening today. Because the cost, imagine for you, the cost of you finding a mistake in your code, for you to redo your code, this used to be very painful. So you had to have a very clear definition here to avoid that. But right now, I did that 2 weeks ago in Austin at the South by Southwest. During the break, my friend Manuel and I, we were together developing an app using vibe coding. And one of the OK buttons were not on the place we wanted. We said, please shift this button to the left or to the right. It takes a second to fix. Immediately, even when you receive an error message, you just copy that error, put and say, solve it for me. And it will go there and investigate the code for you. So what is happening, the execution is becoming much, much less painful. Up to a point that people are starting to question, why do I need to plan on that? And this is an absolutely big disruption, okay? I know that some of you listening to me are saying, wow, this is big, or maybe, it's very common when we are talking about change, and I spoke a lot about change, that people start saying, Ricardo, this will never replace programmers and this. I understand that. But I would be a little bit skeptical on saying that it will never be replaced. Because what we saw in 2 years, I would say these tools are not perfect. Of course, if you are a very good programmer, it will not replace you. But the pace things are happening, it's shifting. So probably you will intervene on these AI tools when it's needed, or when something very complex is needed that it was very hard to give the right instructions. But most of the, the vanilla code, the basic code will be developed. And this is a dramatic shift, because this may make agile redundant. So why do I need to do all of that? If I can just talk to AI and do that for me. So why I'm saying this? Because it's the first time I see AI going towards disrupting a very core of what is project management and what is project management in software. Of course, this will be much harder to happen in a construction, because you cannot say, okay, I didn't like that door, let's just demolish the door and make the door in another place. But when you're talking about intangible products, I would say with software, for example, you can do that in a much easier way. So this will be a massive shift on the mindset of what is to be a project manager in the software industry. So what is my advice to all of you? It's first, you need to understand what is going on. So if I were you, I would look for tools like the one I'm using most. It's called Lovable. Lovable. I will take a look at Cursor. I will take a look on for interface V0 by Vercel. And I would take a look, of course, many of you, if you are working on this field, are already using GitHub Copilot. And these are, I know that it's very easy to be defensive and say this will never reach the full potential. And maybe it will never. But remember that the first steps of the ladder of what is to manage projects in software development, they will be done by AI. That's a no-brainer at all. And it's an easy and fast adoption. Probably in 1 year from now, we will be talking completely different about how do we develop software. So people will develop. Of course, there is plenty of risks, and I would love to hear your comments on that. But it's the first time I see this happening in my field in such a dramatic speed. At South by Southwest, every single person were talking about using AI to software development. So probably AI in software development will become, in the next 3 to 6 months, something like the ChatGPT, the Claude, Perplexity, Gemini are doing for language, for translation, and for creative writing. So think always about that, because we are facing this disruption, and this disruption will not end. And the best way for us to prepare is to know what is coming. So take a look on these tools. Most of them are free, so free to use, I would say, in smaller scales. Do that, because it will prepare yourself. You will prepare yourself to, I would say, a very disruptive future we may see in the future. Look, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and see you next week with another 5 Minutes podcast.